Hello, Dr. Brower. We are working on
the FFA4 for aphasia.
Yeah, for aphasia. We are going to do the short form because the long form is very long. So first of all, you'd have them fill out personal history forms, or you'd fill them out with them, I suppose. And then a diagnostic summary form.
Yeah, I think the diagnostics.
Or maybe that's where you record your results.
Yeah, the diagnostic summaries for at the end.
Yes, that is the ending.
Just a little teaser for the end.
Okay, so because we're doing the short portion of the test, we don't do a recognition portion, which involves visual recognition, auditory recognition, and tactile recognition. So we wouldn't use the scissors and spoon or fork and marble, those utensils.
The long one,
Yeah, so we're just going to move on to the auditory verbal comprehension. So what I would do is I'm going to name body parts and read sentences, and the person will then answer them. And it's scored as a 2, a 1, or a 0. 2 being correct right away, 1 being there's a little struggle, maybe a little prompt, and 0 is nothing at all. So I would say put your hand on your nose, and they'd do that, or put your hand on your ankle. And then I would move on and ask them the comprehension of oral sentences and say, is a pen used, or is a pen for writing? And they would want to say yes. Or is the weather warm when it snows? And they'd want to say no. So moving on to the comprehension of multiple choice sentences. So I have this prompt that I can use. It just has the words on there. So I would say, what do people wear on their hands? And then they would want to choose gloves, but I think it's still correct if they use a synonym that resembles the same thing, like mittens would be appropriate as well. And then there's just several sentences that you then again score 2 to 0.
And then if they get it wrong, then you would say it verbally and ask them to point to the correct
one
word
on the line.
Yeah.
And there is no ceiling at all on this test.
Yep. Okay, so then the next part is auditory discourse comprehension, and it's basically short paragraphs and then asking questions, and it's on here as well. But these are just the questions. So the instructions is, I will ask you questions about a story I just read. Raise your hand or tell me when you hear the correct answer. So I'm going to read the short story, ask the question, and then read all 4 of the answers. And when they hear the correct answer, they're supposed to raise their hand, or they can verbally say when they heard the correct answer. So here's one. One day some children were playing in the snow. They were making snow animals. One of the animals was a dog. Soon Spotty the dog next door came out of the house. When he saw the snow dog, he barked, "Bow wow." The children laughed and one said, "Now we have a dog that can bark." So the question is, what were the children doing? And you can show them this to look at, and then I would provide the answer. So playing games, making animals in the snow, walking their dog, throwing snowballs. And then you'd hope that they would raise their hand or verbally say that the second answer was correct. And then there's 3 of these short answers or short questions. And then the next part is silent reading comprehension. So that's in this book, and you have them read silently to themselves these short questions. So the first one is, what can most cats do? And then they are instructed to point to the answer on the right that's correct. So what do most cats do? You'd want them to point to meow, and then so forth. And then paragraphs, just writing paragraphs. I don't really remember what that one was.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's write a story, maybe,
about the sentences. Yeah, I think they have to write a short story about the 5 sentences from above.
Yeah,
but we'll let you know.
Okay, so moving on, now we do vocational movements. So I basically just asked the client to repeat after me, starting with numbers and then words and then sentences. So 9, and they would say 9, and then a word, television, and they would say television, or a cat drinks milk, and then they would repeat, and then you score them 2 through 1. And then moving on to language production. So there's automatic or serial speech that you're assessing. So you ask them to count from 1 to 20, and then you just can dash numbers that they did incorrectly or errors they had. And then there's also reciting the alphabet and the days of the week, the months, and then singing a song they're likely to know. And we decided Happy Birthday was a good song for that. So that's that part.
Yep. Next is naming body parts. So it says that you would have the examinee point the body parts on the examiner. So if you were the examinee, you would point to the body parts on me. So ear, chin, and then so forth. And then next is word retrieval. So they just answer the questions that relates to their life pretty much. So what do you drive? Car. Where do you buy coffee? Coffee shop. What do you use for washing your hands? Soap, water. So just writing down what they respond, and then scoring 2, 1, or 0 as well. And then phonological generating naming. So this one is you time them for 30 seconds and ask them to write all the names. Name words that begin with T, the letter T. So they would name as many words as they could think of that start with the letter T for 30 seconds. And then you just write them down. And then the next one is the same thing, except they name all types of fruit that they can think of in 30 seconds.
Moving on to category naming. So you would give them names of the category. So you'd say like hammer, saw, pillars, and they would want to then say tools and naming the category. Or table, bed, chair, furniture, and then you score 2 through 0 again. And then we move on to meaningful writing. And so they are supposed to write out these letters. So you just I think you tell them, you present these cutout letters, but we didn't get them.
Or you can present that, I think.
Yeah, for the letters.
Yeah, if they need them bigger maybe, then you can cut them out.
Yeah, so there are some cut out, and then they are just supposed to write down their letters. And then this sheet here is where they document the letters. And then it also has spelling and writing sentences. So lastly, I think that is all. Yeah. And then once we got all our scores, we would put them in that
summary form.
The summary form that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.